Hey y'all, as some of you all may know, my name is Mick, and this is my first commentary paint thing. If you'd rather just watch the speed paint version, I will put a link to it in the description, and I'll put an eye in the sky right now, so you can watch it there. Alternatively, you can watch this video with the sound muted because the speed paint will be sped up a lot more. For this first commentary, I wanted to talk about something that's very near and dear to my heart as a procrastinator, and that is coming back to art after a long period of time. I'm going to be talking generally about returning to art in its entirety after not drawing or painting or anything for a long while, but this can also apply to returning to a specific piece that you haven't been working on or returning to anything really. It doesn't have to be art related. Now, sometimes you have to take a break from art. It may be because you don't have the time for it, it may be because you need a break for your physical or mental health. It could be anything, and whatever the reason may be, that's okay. It's okay to not draw. I think a lot about that Ralph Waldo Emerson quote, "Art is a jealous mistress," because I really feel that in my soul. I think that as creators, we are really pressured by ourselves to be creating with every spare moment that we have, and when we're not, or at least I, start to feel incredible amounts of guilt, and it's almost like object permanence no longer applies because I start to think, how dare I call myself an artist when I am not producing art at this exact moment? And a lot of times this guilt makes me not want to draw, which seems kind of paradoxical, but it does. It's this thought that I should be drawing, I haven't drawn in forever, but I shouldn't draw because now that I haven't drawn in forever, whatever I draw when I come back to it has to make up for all of the time that I have lost. So when this happens, I just end up prolonging the time that I spend not creating content, and I am making it harder for myself to come back to art in this continuous cycle. It just keeps feeding itself, and it'll go on forever. So how to break this cycle? Well, the obvious answer is that you have to just do the thing that you've been putting off, but that's way easier said than it is done. I just think the biggest piece of advice that I have for getting yourself into a state of mind where you are mentally prepared to come back to doing art is to acknowledge the time that you have been away from art. Just acknowledge it and then move on. State the fact, say, I haven't drawn anything in 3 months or however long, and then just let that fact sit in the universe and walk away and move on from that. Don't beat yourself up over how long you haven't been drawing. If you want to take a note of it and learn from it in a sort of, hey, I never want to do this again sort of way, then do that. Use it, learn, and grow. But being hard on yourself for something that you can't undo when it's something that wasn't hurting anyone, it wasn't hurting yourself either, unless there's some extenuating circumstances like your art is your only source of income and you didn't have the savings to take the break that you did. But for the most part, most people and in most circumstances, not creating art is not hurting you. It may feel like it is because of the guilt and the anxiety that I had just talked about, but in the end, you probably aren't hurting yourself by not doing art, and you certainly aren't hurting anyone else, so it doesn't matter anymore. There's no use dwelling on it because it doesn't matter. And if you keep dwelling on how long you've been away from art even after you start drawing, those feelings of guilt are going to keep festering, and they form these unrealistic expectations for what your first piece of art should look like now that you've returned to it. And you're not going to meet those expectations because you've built them up too much in your own mind. And even if you produce something that's really good, you're not going to appreciate it, and you're not going to like it because it doesn't meet those expectations that you've set for yourself. And it's okay to not meet your own expectations. It's normal to set goals for yourself and fall just a little bit short. But when you make such lofty goals that you're going to fall incredibly short, that's when it's difficult to look at your art and recognize what you did well. Like, hey, I did this, this, and this well, and maybe I could improve on this aspect of it, but I can work on that next time. I can do that in the next piece. But you know what? This piece that I just made, it's still good despite whatever mistake I have made. And the higher your expectations, the harder it is to do that. Wow, okay, this has gone on for a lot longer than I expected it to, but yes, in essence, acknowledge that you have spent a long time away from art and move on. Don't beat yourself up about not meeting your high expectations. Still acknowledge what you did well in a piece, even if it wasn't as good as you had hoped. I have a few more tips, but honestly, these things could be their own videos, so I'll try to keep them short just because of how long I've been talking. If the reason that you haven't been able to draw is a lack of time, then make a schedule, not a schedule of when you should draw, but a schedule of what you are doing right now. And then with that schedule, figure out when you have time that you're not doing anything. There is probably space in that schedule for art. And if you really don't have any space, you can't find anything anywhere, then buy a sketchbook and keep it with you at all times, because even if you don't realize that you have time on your schedule, you will at some point in the day find a time where you just don't have anything to do. I spend so much time during my day waiting around. Part of that is because I give myself enough time to travel places with traffic included. So when there's not traffic, I end up somewhere, 20 minutes early. And then that's 20 minutes that I can spend drawing instead of, reading or on my phone, which is my first instinct. Uh, Trust me, you will be able to find time in your day, and it's just a really good thing to have a sketchbook with you all the time, but it's even better to have a drawing plan that you can stick with, Look at your schedule, find where you have free time, say, hey, here's a however long block of time that I normally just spend watching TV. I'm going to spend that time doing art, and then stick to that plan. Just draw in that time, and it makes it so much easier to come back to art on a daily basis or however often you want to do it, because you have this set time that you are used to doing it in. Another thing that can help you come back to art is working in a different medium. Like if you're an oil painter and you're used to working on these vast sprawling canvases and you use impasto and chiaroscuro in every single painting, maybe just chill. Do some watercolors. But genuinely, I think that you will find that it's easier to experiment with a medium that you are less experienced with. It goes back to my point about unrealistic expectations, because even if you don't consciously set expectations for yourself, you will have them based on the work that you've created in the past and how you perceive your own skill level, and you will create those expectations. And if you think that you aren't mentally ready to return to that specific medium that you normally work in, or meet your own expectations, and return to the norm of the art that you create, then yeah, work in a different medium. Genuinely do some watercolors, some charcoals, some pastels, whatever. Just do something that you aren't as well versed in. And that act of physically putting brush, pencil, pen, whatever, to canvas, paper, tablet, whatever, and creating art, like, hey, art has just sprung forth from your hand. That process will help you ease back into art. And something that you can do instead of working in a different medium, or as well as, if you'd like, is working smaller. Don't feel pressured to start a big project right away. If you don't feel ready, then get a smaller canvas. And I used to have a sketchbook where the pages were like the size of index cards, and they make sketchbooks that are even smaller than that. I've also been really into art trading cards and ACOs recently, which are just these small trading card size pieces of like paper and, canvas or whatever. Not canvas, but art that you can make, and then trade it, sell it, depending on what you prefer. And you can look into doing something like that if you're interested. It will help you in the same way that working with a different medium will help you, in the sense that it's just a way to ease you back into art without, making this big thing. There are other things that you can do, but I have been going on for long enough, so to close, thank you for watching this video. It is the first of its kind that I have made, although I plan to make more. I have a lot of things that I want to talk about. If you have something that you want me to talk about, or if you have more things that can help you return to art, then feel free to leave a comment or shoot me a message or whatever you want to do. Really are more things that you can do that make it a bit easier. I just rambled too much. Would you believe me if I said this thing was scripted? No, I wouldn't either, and I'm staring at a script right now. So to sum up this whole video, don't feel like you have to make this big, spectacular comeback. You aren't Michael Jordan. You don't have to make a feature-length film in conjunction with Looney Tunes to celebrate that you're returning to basketball. Although if you want to do that, I won't stop you. Space Jam 2, bring it on. But don't feel like you have to. You can return to art at whatever pace you're comfortable with, and know that, I'm proud of you. And I know that that sounds really ingenuine and impersonal, because I probably don't know you, but I know how hard it can be to return to art, so please know that I am being 100% genuine when I say that I am proud of anyone who can make this return, because I've done it and I can emphasize with people who have done it. So really, I know that it can be a struggle to return to art, especially when you classify yourself as an artist and that is part of your identity. And it's so often coupled with these harsh, self-critical thoughts, and while the things that I said in this video can make it easier, it's still so hard. So really, if you need some support or some cheerleading, you can message me. I will validate the hell out of you, because I really am proud of anyone who can do this. So, I'm done now. Definitely for real this time. Thank you for watching, and I'll make another one of these soon. Thanks!